How do we usually start this thing?
You welcome everyone to the book club.
Are you streaming yet?
I'm about to.
Okay.
Okay. I think it is. I think it's going now. Okay.
Welcome everybody to
Oh, yeah,
another
that's the first
episode
time.
of How I Met Your Book.
And what an anticlimax. Okay, so welcome everyone to Sci-Fi on Ice book story number. Ooh, we're doing two stories today. So story number 17 and 18 today, week 17 or whatever. And we're gonna talk about two stories today. I'm quite excited because I don't know how it's gonna work, but I think we can wing it. And I was thinking that I could start by just introducing the plot to the two stories, and then we'll talk about them one by one, and then do some contrasting and talk about parallels, and then shoot onto the score. All right, so the first story is called "The New You" by Kit Reed, and it's set maybe in the 50s, and I got that suburban lifestyle where everything is prim and proper of that time. And it's a story about a plump woman called Martha and her alter ego um, Marnie, and Marnie persuades Martha to buy a better looking version of herself. And I mean, maybe you could call it like a replicant of some sort. And so this is the science fiction element in the story. And one thing before I finish on the plot there is that we sort of understand that there's some kind of transition that takes place, but I think we'll talk about this more because it's you know I'm sort of in two minds about whether how much of Martha is money and how much of it is the replicant, but we'll talk about that. But anyway, but yeah, this story is sort of about um, Martha's um, adventure into buying this replicant. Does it fix her life? We'll talk about that in a moment. And our second story is called Immersion by I'm gonna butcher the name, Aliette de Bodard. Is that all right? And it's in this one, like, it's science fiction straight from the beginning. It's set on a space station called Longevity, and it's run by people or beings called the Galactics, and it's about our protagonist called, is it Ki or Kwai? And I'm getting like a Vietnamese sort of jive from that, and so but it's about her, and she wears this tech called Immersion, which creates this avatar skin around her, and she's been asked to go to this meeting with a client to do, I think, some order for a wedding banquet. So in the restaurants on the space station, and then the story is sort of about the conflict that she has with using this immerser, and so I think it was a bit long-winded, but I think that sort of gives us like the gist of the two stories, right? So
Yeah.
let's cut back to the first story, um, the new you. Um, yeah, Dean, what did you think of this story?
Um, well, like you said, you get that distinct kind of 40s or 50s vibe out of it. Just through the what they deemed the social interactions back then and kind of networking and hobnobbing.
Mm,
Um, and that was sort of interesting. The idea of the clone, um, and then somehow your consciousness moves into this other clone, this body. That was kind of interesting. I wish they'd maybe said something more on it, or maybe just mentioned the instructions for, when you open this coffin shaped box, with this body inside. They keep referring to the instructions that sit on top. It would have been interesting to see what the instructions were. But yeah, it definitely made you think in terms of what our own image of ourselves is and what the image other people have of us. The traits that we deem, our attractive traits, are not always the same thing that other people would say are our attractive traits.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a thinker.
Right. I really like this story. I like the constant negotiation between the characters. Of course, you've got our protagonist Martha and her alter ego, and their negotiation. So at first, I guess this is the story kind of like the devil's deal, right? Or making the deal with the devil, right? Like you get this thing, this short, what is it? Some benefit in the short term, because obviously everything is gangbusters at first, but there's constantly this reevaluating where more deals are made along the line. So like I think Marnie, the alter ego, realizes that Martha is still about in the house, like the original woman, and she's like, "Well, what are you still doing here?" And then Martha's like, "Well, I'm still here." And then so they make a deal, you know, and then but then later there are more deals made, and so it just kind of spirals out. And I really like the ending to the story, because I wasn't expecting it, but it really paid off quite nicely. So yeah, that's me for the new you. How about Sarah? How do you like this story?
I thought it was interesting, yeah, because like you say, the twist at the end where even though she does all of this to be more attractive to herself, and also she fears to her husband, and ends up not being worth that
Mm,
because she ends up not keeping the her husband. Um, but I think that it kind of the lesson at the end from that twist is really nice because it's kind of a, you know, you're attractive in ways that you don't realize you are, like as Dean was saying. Because she still had feelings for her husband, even though she was more attractive. And she was attracting other people through her socializing and her whining and dining and etc.
mm,
So it only held true that even when he became more attractive, he still had the same feelings for the original wife, the one that he chose to marry. So it's that kind of, yeah, like was it Martha? Is that the first name? She, uh, she was still attractive and like she lost sight of, I guess, why he chose her
mm.
because that's what he does in the end as well. He chooses her, the original her. Um, and so it's a nice twist in that way. Kind of reconfirms that, you know, you're beautiful even though you don't think you are, and, you know, don't worry. And also the fact that they should really be communicating more as a married couple
Yeah,
about things like that. Um, because, yeah, as like the outsider, you know obviously how she feels about it, but then in the end you find out that yeah, he always loved her. So they really should have been communicating more.
yeah. There's definitely that, and yeah, and I couldn't help but think about times where maybe you're at a gathering or a party, and there's someone who's, I guess, the center of attention, but they're not necessarily like the most attractive person. And so, maybe think about that. It's like, oh, well, it's there's more substance to why we like somebody than just the appearance of
Yeah.
someone, which I guess we would call superficial. And there's nothing wrong with being good looking or looking after yourself, because as we find out, was it Martha's like sitting in the closet eating marshmallows, like a bag of, not looking after herself. So it, it was a
But
weird, yeah,
no, I was just gonna say, because also the fact that she does indulge herself like that and has grown fatter is also what kind of undermines the relationship between the new Martha and the husband, because the new one finds her hand feeding chocolate cake to the husband, right?
yeah,
And she's like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, you're cheating on
yeah,
me, but you're not, because it's still the same husband and we're actually the same person." But it's still that she's undermined because she has these new aspirations, which she went on by herself.
mm,
Um, but yeah, it's like but I think it's interesting because it was written in the early 1960s, and they use that 1950s kind of cliche of the housewife and the dinner guests, and he has the financial pursuits, and she just stays at home, is meant to be the perfect housewife. So it undermines that as well, because she feels she has let herself down in that kind of cliche. She's not being the perfect housewife. She's not staying attractive. She doesn't look the way she wants to look. And so she's isolated, and she's alone with her thoughts. And I think that kind of that gets to her,
mm,
because this second person, this persona, um, is chipping away, kind of like, yeah, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not thin enough. If only you could be like this, all of these things would get better. And yeah, it all proves for naught.
right. Um, yeah, I thought I want to go back to the point about the instructions, what Dean mentioned before. How she, she's so enamored by this parcel. She brushes away the instructions and she goes straight into it. And then the story mentioned there's a transition, which it doesn't really sort of explain, how like what kind of transition happens, but you get the idea that her alter ego Mani is sort of takes on the form of this new uh what would you call it, a replicant or a uh, Dean, what was the word you used?
Like a clone.
A clone, yeah, a clone, right? Like, but a good-looking clone that that Mani sort of Im, Im, I guess embodies this or takes on that form, and then Martha stays in the plump, older form. And yeah, what did you guys think about that sort of the brushing away of the instructions? We don't know what the instructions were, but it's significant in that in how it's discarded, and that obviously it's not used correctly because it's sort of rushed in.
Yeah, her haste is her own kind of demise, because they say, like, you need to follow the instructions in order to like safely dispose of the original.
Mm,
So her haste is in wanting this new persona, this duplicate, is like kind of the reason she's then left miffed and a bit unhappy, really. Um, because then that loophole, she's like, oh, I'll just do that again, without really taking into account the internal motivations and desires, because the husband still chooses the original.
yes, and you know what I found interesting about that was that Mani wanted to kill Martha. She gets the poison, and then Martha cottons onto it, and then she explains, I guess she goes and finds the instructions in the meat, like after the fact, and then she points out, oh, by the way, if you kill me, it kills you too, right? So there's there's that, and there's sort of, I guess that sort of leads us to believe how interconnected the not only as alternate personas, but how this clone is to the original Martha. So it does. I still have some questions about what it was the like originally intended for. Like you get this clone, and then you I don't know. Like yeah, I guess the story I'm quite satisfied with, but on the other hand, if you were to ordinarily use it, I sort of wonder how, because
I think
yeah.
I wondered this as well. I think there's more of a transition, maybe, like more of the psyche, because I wonder if the new one is a little bit more robotic in a way, like
Mm,
less of the sentimentality, whereas, she's a shell. So like you follow the instructions, then you take more of the inside,
mm.
and so then the old one is left as a shell, which is then kind of sent back to the factory in that box.
Yeah, I like that.
That's
Yeah.
that's what I thought, at least, as to why she should have followed the instructions.
Mm. Yep. No, I agree. All right. Anything else we want to talk about this story, Dean? Got any closing thoughts on this story?
Um, no, just I really enjoyed the way it made you look, with the twist at the end,
Mm.
and especially as you finish off the last page,
Yeah.
like you're still playing out the story in your mind, which I quite enjoyed.
Yeah, I did like how the ending was sort of, because the story is this unraveling, right, of mistakes, which like these constantly needing to revise all these deals. First she makes the deal to get this new clone of her, and then Marnie and Martha have got to work out a deal. Martha gets the maid costume, and she's got to be the maid in the house, and then what happens later? Uh, Marnie wants to get rid of her, so she says like, go to another. Here's some money. Go to another town. But then Martha keeps coming back at the dinner parties, and all the way to the end where we get we presume that uh, who now who is it that gets it, or do we know that who gets the last clone, which is the perfect? Is it Howard? What's the husband's name?
So when the husband does the change,
Yeah. Who?
the intelligent version of him ends up going with the old, uh, what's her name, Marnie. No, no, no,
No, Martha.
Martha,
Martha.
with
Yeah,
Martha,
yeah.
and
He's
Marnie
not
is left with the drooling husk.
yeah, he's not more intelligent. It's just more attractive, because
Yeah,
like it's just that he's physically more um, different. But yeah, the new husband goes with the old wife, and the new wife gets the old husband.
Yeah, I like it how Marnie is
Yes.
the good-looking wife is I like her disdain for like because she's stuck with the husband who's been fed all the
with her
chocolate,
darling.
and she's left with the bad one. And yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. But in the end, it's not actually a good ending as far as there was not like lessons learned. It was sort of like it was a total destruction of a relationship. So you know,
And completely her own doing.
yeah, yeah. So it was yeah, I quite like that story. All right, so let's shift over to our second story, Immersion by. And Sarah, you got to help us with the name. Is it Aliette or Aliette de Bodard?
Oh, de Bodard, yeah.
Yeah. Um, what was yeah, how did you enjoy the story?
Yeah, I got strong colonial overtones from this one. I hadn't read it all the way through when I recommended it, because I was more going for the fact there was a symmetry between the two in terms of the female protagonist wanting to kind of represent herself differently physically,
Mm,
like present a different image of herself in order to be viewed a different way, um, and which at the end you realize just how much one character does, kind of like what co-protagonist. Um, but such strong overtones of colonization, and like I got a China vibe, not Vietnamese personally,
mm,
because of like the food and like the restaurant and how she described these things, that they were seeing. So I got like a Chinese vibe in terms of then the West, because it was written 2011, so it's much more modern. Um,
mm,
and kind of this criticism against the Galactics being Europeans or Caucasians, setting the standard, or so they thought, and the outsiders wanting to undermine that. Um, but yeah, it was interesting. There was a couple of different themes there. Um, and like the one that I thought would take center stage ended up being kind of second in my mind.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I quite liked the world building. Uh, like I knew where I was, and it felt like the author was creating this universe where a lot of other stories could take place, and but yet this is where with our protagonist. Her name is it Ki or Kwai, which I don't know.
I'd probably say
It
he.
Ki, yeah, Ki. Yeah, I mean, I definitely because they mentioned like the Mandarin course, which is Chinese, but then I don't know, Ki is not a Chinese name, so it's that doesn't matter. But but anyway, that's but yeah, it's a very Oriental sort of Oriental space story. But yeah, we get yeah her she gets a call from second uncle and then second uncle, which yeah, that's very Chinese, right? They talk in their aunties, uncles, cousins in relation to
Big sister, little sister.
yeah, there was a lot of that. So the second uncle, I guess it's a family member, and he calls her up to come and do a deal, but he's told her that she's got to wear her immerser, which is like makes this avatar looking, so she looks like I guess it makes her look like a galactic person, but I got the impression that it made her look like a European, so I was a bit confused. I was like, you know what I mean? Because it described her as having like fair skin with red hair, and I was like, oh, okay, but is it galactic? Is galactic like? And you're right, like the colonialism thing. I kept thinking that. I was like, but is it? Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say I was confused, but I felt like I was thinking too much about it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, is this like a decolonization story, or is this about this story about this girl dealing with having to wear something that makes her look different? And yeah, I kind of I guess I struggled with that. And and I guess the ending of the story where I definitely got the feeling that our protagonist like was having a conflict with the tech. She wasn't. This story was quite good at showing us how it wasn't sitting right with her. But at the end, in the end, she was sitting across this other woman who's like telling her to take off the tech, and then they end up running away to this room where they liberate themselves. But it was a bit forced. It was just like, yes, I know this is this conflict, but it doesn't resolve by just saying that you take it off and then you take it off, and it's, you know what I mean. I felt that was a bit, the payoff wasn't there for me.
She doesn't take it off in the end.
And they go, so they go to the room, and there's like the other little girl comes in as well.
This little sister, she's always been there because the bigger one just left the conversation. But the one that was stuck in the immerser, I didn't think she actually took it off. It was more just kind of oh, you guys can help me and I can help you. And then it was to be continued. But I didn't get the impression they actually took anything.
I'm trying to think. So they go. Do they go into a room or something? What is it at the end? They go.
Yeah, they do. They go
Yeah.
into a different room
Mm.
where they had already come from because it's their home, the two sisters.
Yeah.
There's another woman who's married to Galen, right?
Okay, Agnes, right? So, but
Yeah.
I thought Agnes was like a persona when she wore the immerser. So I thought that Key and Agnes were the same person.
No,
Okay. Oh.
two different women. Dean, what did you read from the story? What did you get? One person or two people?
3, I think.
I mean, well, little sister as well.
Yeah,
But
so there's the 2 girls and then there's the little sister. Yeah. Yeah,
and
for
then
me
big.
it was the whole addiction to the tech. And how it didn't just change your appearance. It also, you know, told you what to think,
It
told you what to
translates
say.
everything around you, right? So you
It
just.
Yeah.
prompts you. Yeah.
It's constantly telling you what to do. Um, and when they said, oh, it started with just putting it on a little bit, and then eventually this woman was putting it on, sleeping with it, waking up, and by the end of the thing, she can't take it off. And yeah, just that the parallels it drew to addiction was quite strong.
And the husband mentions about taking her to a psychiatrist, and when she says, "Take me to a psychiatrist," and he's like, "Yeah, don't you think I have already?" Or
Yeah.
and so I guess that probably comes into the unreliable narrator because of the I think it probably both stories dealing with like the double persona or the alternate personalities. So this I feel like Agnes is Key, and Agnes is the colonized version of her, and Key is the authentic one that she keeps. She has that. She keeps like bringing. I'm not bringing it up. She keeps before like on the journey to the restaurant. There's a lot of talk about the authentic self and about the aromas, the smells of, and also the language, and it sort of comes up. Um, there was that weird bit where yeah, there was that like the Asian language comes up something autumn. I can't remember. There was some Asian word and then it said autumn, and then she said the red maple leaves on the floor, and it was maybe like a malfunction or something in it where her true or her authentic self was coming through, and yeah,
Yeah. But that's also why the husband was having the feast there, is in order to kind of try to get through to her, because I think he does realize just how thick the immerser is, and that she has lost a sense of herself. Because you know, kind of harking back to the other story as well, like the wife imagines, is assuming that she needs to be a certain way for the husband, when in both cases the husband married the woman before she had this alternative persona, right?
Mm.
Is like he wants her how she originally was, but she assumes that's not good enough. So like in both stories, there's like this on what somewhat crippling self-doubt as to what they should be for their partner. Um, and yeah, he's trying to like book this banquet in the country or the place or planet or whatever where she comes from in order to kind of get her back from beneath this immerser, this huge persona that she's created that's just overwhelmed her. Yeah. Sad but sweet.
Yeah, no, I definitely felt I don't know. I guess one thing I struggled with the immersion was that I felt like I was being told that the Galactics were bad, but I wasn't. I felt like I didn't it's not that I didn't believe it. It's that like I wasn't shown. You know, it's sort of because it was like you say with the whole colonial thing. It was like, well, colonialism bad, and it's like, yeah, but what if the Galactics had brought all this medicine and things like that? And it's like, yes, some things are bad, but maybe some things are good. I felt like it was just wholesale bad, and and I don't know. It was interesting because the husband also brought up the old the how like democracy was going to come about one day. It was like, yes, yes, you know, we've fought off the our what is it, the tyrants, and then don't worry, we're going to get democracy. And that, yeah, I just felt like there was a bit too much of that the political stuff involved in the story, where I was more interested in our characters struggle with um wearing this immerser to, you know, create this avatar or this appearance in order to please a client, you know, because I think if you know, if I'm a client, like I really don't care how the people look. I just care that, oh, you've got this food for my wedding, and it's cheap and it's really good quality. Great, you know, that's like as a client, like I would be like, oh, sorry, you don't look like this. It just doesn't really make any business sense to me. So I guess,
You mean why this big sister had to wear her immerser?
yeah,
So it's not just the physical appearance, though. It's what Dean was saying about the gestures and the like the language. So it's kind of a translator as well. It tells you
yeah,
how the different gestures. Because remember, at one point they put their hands together. Like
mm,
the uncle puts the hands together, and the girl was saying, "Oh, like that. He must have learned that. That's a galactic thing.
yeah,
Like he wouldn't usually do that." And
mm,
so she was surprised that he knew it because that's what the immerser is doing as well. So it's not just, you know, look pretty, but it's also like a translator. That's the impression I got. And because they want her to do it because she spent time on Galactic as well, which I think is quite typical just as family members. Be like, oh wait, you've been to this country, you talk to them. Um, which is
no,
kind
I
of like,
guess no, that
doesn't
does
mean I
make
know everything.
that does make sense because, and I guess we probably have learnt this in Hong Kong, where like actually when they do business deals, they like to go and like have like a meal or something, whereas for us in the West, it's not in this it's not a deal maker, right? Whereas it's like a trust forming thing in Hong Kong where they'll have like a meal or something when they do a big uh you guys know about this, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, like
it's
just
just this culture. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, but for us, like, back in where I'm from, like, it's not gonna like help one way or the other. It probably would be like, oh, it's interesting, but not. It's not a cultural aspect, and so yeah, I guess the immerser, I can sort of see, I can see that, but then coming back to our character, like, because she's really like struggling with it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still get back. I feel a bit confused about. Oh, yes, she's struggling with it, but then I don't know. Yeah, not as sold on that.
You mean why Agnes is struggling with it?
But also, well, Key, like, I guess I'm reading this story thinking that Key and Agnes are the same person. Although like the perspective changes, I feel like they're the same person. That Agnes is the form of Key when she wears the immerser. That's my understanding. I know,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I know the
Oh,
perspective
I thought.
changes in the story, but I just take it as that.
No, I think it's just two. They're not the same person, but
Yeah.
they're kind of like the two avenues that you could take as someone who stays in their home planet slash country and someone who marries someone from a different culture slash planet. Um, and that kind of the two ways it could change who you think you are. So yeah, I still think they're different people because Keys just happened to stay where she is and with her family and the culture that she was raised in, whereas Agnes married someone from a different culture slash planet, um, and has lost sense of who she is, which kind of talks about the colonial aspect. I think because I think there is an awful lot of subtext about that's bad.
Mm,
Colonialism bad, galactic's bad. So
mm. All right, jump in, Dean. You got something to say?
Yeah, well, I just agree with the with Agnes being a separate person.
Mm,
Yeah, just especially with the when I think it was the immerser that was prompting her to call Agnes little sister, and then
right.
he was commenting that she has so many other words to call Agnes, and the immerser keeps prompting her to call her little sister. Um,
Okay.
and then yeah, just the way that the immerser was reducing a culture to a program, the galactic
Mm,
culture and their mannerisms and their customs, and it all just gets reduced to a program, and code.
mm.
So there isn't even an assimilation into a culture or an adopting of customs. It's just you're being prompted. Okay, bow now. You know, smile now. Nod now. Don't nod like that. Um, yeah, so she never, even though she's adopting the right mannerisms and she's trying to fit in, she never will because she hasn't assimilated into the culture. She's just someone who's you know doing the action, and she'll never will. And the
Mm,
more she uses the immerser, thinking that it's she's fitting in with culture, the more that she's losing herself. And that's what her older sister is. She can see it.
yeah, I like
Yeah.
what you said about how the culture has been reduced to the like a computer program, and she talks, or the character talks about, yeah, she refers to it as it being galactic tech. It's their product, and she feels very, this is key, I guess, talking about the tech, and thinking, you know, that it's their thing, and she feels, I want to say alienated, but she just kind of, yeah, she's not a,
Yeah, because Key sets it down to like way low, the
mm,
settings.
yeah,
So the interface is as well, let's say the veil is as thin as possible.
Well, why did they make the point that only this is the tech that only tourists use when they come to the longevity space station?
Because galactics don't need it on their own country, on their own planet, because that's the standard, right? We
They're
don't
right.
learn any other language. We all speak English. We only use a translator when we go to other countries,
Mm,
right? If you think of it in terms of Western, Eastern, I view the galactics as Euro American, and the fact that Hollywood, things like that, English, that's all like the standard that we hold other places to. And so when we're in our own countries, we don't need any of this help. We don't need to understand. We don't have those conversations of, oh, culturally, that's a bit different. Here we do it like this, right? We already know it. Um, but when we go to other countries, we have lots of conversations of like, oh, okay, this is why we don't understand each other. Okay, this is how it's different culturally,
mm.
linguistically, whatever. That's how I viewed it, is that they don't use it back home because they don't care, because they're the ones saying this is what it's like.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still trying to piece together. All right, so when they come, let's say, so when they get to the restaurant, second uncle's there, and Key arrives, right? Then,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's Galen and Agnes. Are they the couple that are getting married then? That
They've
no,
been married for 5 years.
and so it's like a no, yeah, like a celebration of it. Oh, okay, no, that makes sense. Yeah, but second uncle is Key's second uncle, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, just the way that it uses you, so the perspective changes is a bit okay. Yeah, okay, no, I can see that now. I see it. All right, and yeah,
It's all right. We're here for you, Stephen. We'll lead you
it's
through the darkness.
it's not a royal you, it's a perspective view. Um, okay, so I think by talking about the stories, we kind of talked about parallels already, right? But let's do this because we said we would. Um, the parallels and the contrast between the two stories. They both deal with appearance, and one is well, actually, the difference is one is substantive and one is more superficial, right? So the new you is the superficial uh, changing of appearance, but the changing of appearance in immersion is actually the substantive one because it comes with the culture um, programmed into it.
Yeah, but you're also rewriting yourself. You're, or not rewriting, but overwriting yourself.
Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, this
You're
is kind of
using
like
yourself
one problem I
this
have with
tech.
that. It's like, well, what is really my culture? Because like if you go back to my parents or their parents' age, like their culture's always been overridden by some other culture. You know, like you just go to my mum's generation, like totally different to where I'm from, and I don't have any of that. You go to my granddad's culture, I don't have any of that culture. Those are just two generations away from me. But I don't feel that I'm at a loss because of it. It's
No, but it's not. I don't think it's so much the losing your culture or adopting this new culture. I think it's the fact that it's so superficial and artificial, and she can't. Well, Agnes can't see herself. She can't interact with anyone without using this tech.
mm,
Substitute the tech for alcohol or pills or gambling, or you can't start your day with with that first drink just to get going.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
Steven, do you want to get that?
Stop, Jamie.
He's still, yeah, he's muted himself. Uh, but
Yeah,
yes, I agree with
yeah.
you. I agree.
Trouble in Paradise.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, it's just about pretending to be something you are not. It's just pretending to be the other. Yeah.
But I don't know but I think sometimes like people try to look for that authentic thing, and I'm like, well, how far back do you want to go? Like, what is it really? And I think like when Key, for me, when Key was going on about the smells and that preaching about the rules in their family culture, I'm like, that's cool, that's great, but I don't know, it didn't really carry didn't have any meaning to the story or to the conflict in her being herself. There was, if there
See,
was more like conflict from like galactics, like saying, you can't do this, or or the rules in the house should be X, Y, and Z.
no, I disagree because I don't see why you have to go back in time again to feel a conflict about who you are. It's about culture across different planets, brackets, countries. Um, it's not about time. She's not connected to those smells and those sounds, those foods um, that are so uniquely of that place.
But she talks
Um,
about the language rising up and then the immerser suppressing it. And
yes,
I mean maybe like I guess
yes.
I would like to have seen more of that, like more of the
So what I
conflict.
was
Yeah.
gonna say was the conflict that she has, and by converting herself through marriage to someone from a totally different country, which a country or a planet that typically doesn't have to seek out to converse through these immersers, right? That the whole thing of they don't need to use them in galactic, but she's an outsider in this place. So she is now the tourist, she's the foreigner there, so she feels a need to use it in order to fit in because, as she said, his friends were laughing at her, she felt ridiculed, she felt very self-conscious.
Mm.
So she wore it in order to fit in for his benefit, or so she thought. So it's not about time or going back to her grandparents. It's about her being an outsider where she wants to be welcomed. And then her crux of that, like Dean was saying, her addiction to that feeling of it's okay, I'm fitting in, I'm okay, becomes this inability to remove it because she's just so addicted to it. Like that's the conflict that I was seeing. So they didn't have to go into how the Galactics made it difficult, like there were rules. They already talked about how she was ridiculed and laughed at by his friends. And I think anyone in a partnership, that's a really big reason to want to change. If you love someone, you want to, you know, be better for them. And maybe it's not a healthy relationship, but that is typical. People do want to do that. They want to change to please the other.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think definitely it sounds like that relationship is probably would expect the guy to tell the other guys like, hey, back off. You know, you intolerant fools.
But yeah, and like the language, it would be the same. Like the reason they use the immersers in other countries, she's using it in a foreign country to her. So it is a language thing as well. You know, all these slight mannerisms and things, making sure she has the right hand gestures, and customs, and pronouns, because she's fixated by this pronoun, right?
Was it older sister? Is it? Or it does,
I
maybe
don't
it doesn't
remember.
say what the pronoun is, but yeah, it says like it seems unnatural to her to that pronoun. I think older sister is what it says, but anyway. But yes,
Should we have a look at scores?
yes, and what I've not done. Just one thing.
Yeah,
It's
I wanna have a look at the stream to see if I can see the artwork.
oh yeah. Um oh
I'll find it. You don't worry about sending a link.
yeah, it's
It'll
decimals.
come up.
Decimal places? Just yep, now we're good with decimal places. Okay. Um let's mosey on to now this is the first time I've done this. Have two different scores for two different stories. So the first story I've got up on the screen is The New You. Can you see the stream, Dean?
Yeah.
Alright. So, um, yeah. Scores for The New You by Kit Reed.
Well, for me, talking about it was not as rich and detailed as the other one, but the story itself was snappy, made a good point, it was concise and clear, and I liked the message. I liked how it was delivered. I'm gonna go 423.
423.
Yeah.
Let me see if I've got that up on. Oh, wait. Tumty tumty tum. Ah, da 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 da. Oh, I need to do something. Save as web page. Don't ask me why. Delays, delays, delays. Alright, let's see, does it work? Yay, it does work. Okay. Alright, so I have the exact same feeling as Sarah about yeah, exactly what you said. I really liked how, the Devil's Deal continued on to more deals, which it was like this weird inevitable destruction. Although like the ending is tragic because it ends up nothing is rectified, but it's just showed that she made the wrong decision and then something bad happened. So I really liked that, and I'm gonna give it a 449.
Mm.
I think it's like one of the highest scores I've ever given. But yeah,
Ever.
yeah, no, I thoroughly I like, like the ending. Like it resolved itself. It had a message. I say resolved, but like obviously, like it ends in tragedy, but that's okay. Yeah. All right, Dean.
Um, yeah, I thought it was short. It was a story. It
It was a story. Set
uh,
that bar high,
so
huh?
so on those two fronts, it was great. I did like the way that they with the clones and the twist at the end.
Mm.
There wasn't any part of the story that I thought, can this just end? Um, so yeah, I'm gonna give it a 400.
400.
Yeah,
All right. Let's. It's always a bit of a delay. 400. And
400 flat.
yes, that brings us. And let's take a look at our score average with some trombones. I don't know, some other musical instrument. 424. 4. It's pretty good.
Huh.
New You by Kit Reed. It was. Did you say it was written in the early 1960s?
1962, I believe.
Yeah. That. I mean, I think that
Yep.
that story has aged well. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know it's set in a different time, but do you know what I mean? I sort of feel like, oh, the message is still relevant, and I can still appreciate it. So it's, yeah, I quite like that. Okay, so let's do scores. We're a bit greedy today. We get to do two lots of scores. We do scores
What?
for Immersion
So,
by Aliette
yeah,
de Bodard.
I'm gonna go first again. Um, I really liked this story as well. I found it, yeah, I guess the dual view was a bit tricky at first. And maybe because I read the beginning twice, maybe that helped me. But I think also with the discussion afterwards, like I really like the themes that were running through it, and the subtext that you could read into it or not, depending on if you wanted to. And I liked the characters. I'm gonna go 460.
460.
Yeah, I like it more.
Let's see, let's see. 460, I got it up. Perfect. Alright, so yeah, I liked the world building in this. You know, I definitely felt like there was a universe where the story was taking place and where other stories could probably um be taken, and I thought the idea of the immerser was original. I mean, obviously, you know, avatars, you know, are not, but the way in which it was used in this story I thought was quite unique, and I like that. Um, although what took it away from me in this story was the exposition on the colonialism. It was like, if you're going to talk about colonialism, just tell me the story. You know, like tell me tell me what's happening, and then I'll understand that colonialism is happening, rather than telling me about. I felt like the Galactic War thing just it didn't help. I just didn't enjoy that. So and and I would have liked the ending to have had more of a payoff. I thought that, you know, like a ripping off of the immerser. Although for some reason I thought that she did take it off when they went into the room, or well, I know that the end of the story was, what is it, like the sisters tell each other that they're there to support each other, and I felt that was a bit flat, and that's just me. Um, but yeah, I like this story, and I'm gonna give it a 378. 378 out of 500, of course. And Dean, you're up.
Okay, I didn't enjoy this one as much as the first one. Yeah, I mean the tech part was about the best for me. But yeah, I mean it still had a good thinking point, which I enjoyed. But it just took me so long to get there that yeah, I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one. The first one was, you know, it was concise. There was no unnecessary explaining and scenes that ran on for too long. So I'm gonna give it 350.
350. Still a
350.
good score.
It's not bad.
It's like a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Alright, so. Oh wait, Dean, get your score up. 350. And you're going with the flat numbers today, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at let's have some different instruments for our score average for Immersion by, I want to say, Aliette de Bodard. Is that? Yeah. Aliette, Aliette, two T's. Don't know what to do. It's okay. I need an immerser to help me out. But yeah, our
Yeah.
You
average.
want different instruments, so I assume you want Dean to do it.
Yeah, that would be pretty neat,
Okay.
Dean.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it. The average score is 396. Yeah, basically
On the money.
400. All right, and then I've got a table now of both, and so we can compare not only the stories with each other, but with our other ones. So the new you, oh, it's done pretty well. It's second on our all-time list, the new you, so it's a good story. And then Immersion's fourth, so both pretty good stories. How to
Not
get
too
back,
shabby.
how to get back to the forest was 394, and Immersion is 396. So it's like a flat 8 out, almost an 8 out of 10. And the new you is like 9.5. No,
Wow. So wait, I've chosen how many of the top 5?
2. But yeah, you can pat yourself on the
Okay.
back, or
No, my evil laugh because I'm the one that doesn't read sci-fi.
uh, I mean,
I only read sci-fi for this.
well, we give the scores as well, so it's partly us, partly us.
No, it's just that's not my point.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's your.
I don't know anything about this stuff. You guys know the authors, and you're like, oh, him? Ooh. I don't know. What are you talking about?
Well, William Gibson's Burning Chrome sits on the top with a 435 average.
Yeah.
So who
And
can
then
beat?
Tony and the Beetle.
Yeah, Tony and the Beatles is third. Now the new you is second. Yeah, Tony and the Beatles is 411. Ooh, and then we go all the way down to the bottom. And what's at the bottom? Exhalation. It's like a 3 out of 10. That was, yeah. Thanks,
That
Dean.
was
That
not
was
a good week.
the worst story I've ever read in my life. Oh, I mean, that guy is famous. The guy who wrote it. I don't know.
See, that's what I mean. You people know this, and I'm just like, story. You gotta worry less about authors, guys. Don't worry about the names. Okay?
Yeah, talk about substance, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
superficial to rely on just the names. Well, I don't know. There's a bit of a people tend to have reputations on the line when they do things.
Or they just, cash in on the fact they have a name.
And then we get to give them low scores.
Yep. And I'm sure they are crying in their beds.
Yeah,
Oh,
with all of
no.
my
Oh,
with all of my 2 subscribers.
no. Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe one of them is the famous author.
Mm,
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Stephen King was giving us a listen.
yeah. Well, this is the alcohol channel, so he's definitely in the right. Isn't he like a alcoholic?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's had some substance abuse issues.
Poor. I don't feel bad for him though. So,
Nah,
uh,
definitely
anyway,
not.
that was fun. And I'm gonna. Is it my turn to, or is it yours, Dean?
No, it's you.
Oh yeah, I got a story, but is 50 pages too long? I had I was looking at 2 stories. One was like 6 pages long, and the other one was 50 pages. And I was
Let's do
thinking,
the 6.
Yeah, to be fair, I've got a fair bit on right now. If you want to have it next week, 6 pages, please.
all right, let's do the 6 pages one then. It's there's a movie made about this one, so it'll be interesting. All right,
Should we watch the movie next week as well then?
I'll send you the link. Yeah, I love the movie, so why not?
No, I meant we'll watch it together. We'll live stream us watching the movie.
We can
Yeah,
do
we
Like
that.
it, from our respective places.
Yeah.
Commenting. Wait, so who is that? Why is he going? What? Wait, why is he opening that door? Where is he going?
There is a fight in this movie. There's a fight scene that's like 15 minutes long. It's so good.
Okay.
Fight scenes. They make movies.
They do. They do.
All right, I'll message you guys the. I'll send you guys the story and the movie. Until next week.